Slow down the proceedings by storming the committee room. Democrats are now seeking to sanction them for breaking House rules, and Wednesday's key witness, a top Pentagon official on Ukraine, did eventually complete her testimony. Our senior congressional correspondent Mary Bruce checking it all. Good morning, Mary.
George, good morning. This was a contentious and rowdy scene here on the Hill. Republicans protesting just one day after stunning testimony directly implicated the president in a campaign to pressure Ukraine. Republicans are slamming the process here, demanding that witnesses be questioned out in the open, while Democrats say Republicans are simply freaked out by the revelations in this investigation and are now trying to stop it.
We're going to go and see if we can get inside.
Chaos on Capitol Hill as the president's allies brought the impeachment inquiry to a grinding halt.
We demand open proceedings. The American people deserve nothing less.
Trying to force their way into the secure room where Democrats and Republicans were trying to question a key witness. The disruption delaying the testimony of the top Pentagon official overseeing Ukraine for 5 hours. The president has been urging Republicans to fall in line and toughen up.
This is an effort to please the president, to try to shut down the process. It's a stunt.
Democrats say Republicans are trying to distract from explosive testimony against the president.
They're just trying to be disruptive because the facts are not on their side.
The Republican protest coming just one day after the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, described in detail what the president and his allies have been denying, a quid pro quo campaign. Taylor outlining how Trump himself insisted on withholding millions of dollars in military aid to force Ukraine to investigate his political rivals. Even some in the president's own party say it's potentially damaging. The number 2 Republican in the Senate, John Thune, saying the picture coming out based on the reporting we've seen is not a good one. On Twitter, Trump is going after Taylor, calling him a never-Trumper diplomat, saying it would be really great if the people within the Trump administration could stop hiring never-Trumpers. But Taylor is a career diplomat who served under presidents of both parties and was asked to return to Ukraine in May by Trump's own Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. Now, none of the Republicans who spoke out at this protest yesterday defended the president against these allegations that he held up that military aid to pressure Ukraine. Instead of focusing on the substance, Republicans are taking on the process. But, George, there is precedent for holding these depositions behind closed doors. Republicans have supported it in the past, and Democrats do say that they will eventually hold public hearings.
Right, the depositions usually go before the open hearings, but are the Democrats feeling more pressure to get to those open hearings more quickly?
Well, George, we're told that this investigation in the House is likely to go on for another 4 to 6 weeks, which means you're looking at these hearings going public sometime in the middle of next month. George.
Mary Bruce, thanks very much. See you.
Okay, George, facing that threat of impeachment, President Trump is now looking to Syria for a win. He declared a, quote, big success there, claiming people are congratulating him and celebrating the great outcome. But just as he was there claiming victory, his own special envoy to Syria was telling Congress a very different story. Our chief global affairs correspondent, Martha Raddatz, joins us now with more from Washington. Good morning, Martha.
Good morning, Cecilia. The president is trying to change the narrative in what is widely seen as a foreign policy blunder, with hundreds dead and wounded, as many as 200,000 displaced, and ISIS fighters on the run. This morning, the fighting in northern Syria has all but stopped, with Russian forces now patrolling alongside Turkish forces, and the Kurds left with no choice but to retreat after the U.S. abandoned the former partners.
Turkey, Syria, and all forms of the Kurds have been fighting for centuries, and now we're getting out.
It was Trump's abrupt withdrawal of American forces, which essentially gave Turkey the green light to invade. Trump's own envoy to the region on Capitol Hill Wednesday, calling Turkey's decision a tragedy.
The Turkish government made a terribly bad and very, very dangerous decision.
A move that could put Americans in the crosshairs once again, with ISIS prisoners now on the loose.
We would say that the number is now over 100. We do not know where they are.
But President Trump claiming the number is far less and downplaying the danger.
There were a few that got out, a small number, relatively speaking, and they've been largely recaptured.
And those Turkish forces and the militias they support Trump's newly appointed Secretary of Defense says he is disturbed by reports of violence from the battlefield that could be seen as war crimes.
Well, I've seen the reports as well. We're trying to monitor them. They are horrible. And if accurate, and I assume that they are accurate, they would be war crimes. As best as I know the law of land warfare.
The president says the American troop withdrawal is part of his promise to get out of endless wars, but those 1,000 Americans in Syria who were withdrawn without warning were there to help the Kurds fight ISIS. Michael?
All right, thank you so much, Martha. Now to the other big hearing on the Hill. Mark Zuckerberg in the hot seat. The Facebook CEO grilled for hours by lawmakers, taking heat for the company's record on hate speech, privacy, and fake political ads. Chief National Affairs Correspondent Tom Yamas has the story.
Mark Zuckerberg facing a grilling on Capitol Hill. He came to promote a cryptocurrency project, but the hearing quickly turned into a gauntlet over Facebook's role in politics and society.
Do you realize that you and Facebook have a credibility issue here?
Many House Democrats ripping into Facebook over its decision to allow politicians to lie in political ads without fact-checking them.
Why should the very politicians who lead our country be held to a lower standard for truthfulness and decency than the average American?
This isn't about helping the politicians. This is about making sure that people can see for themselves what politicians are saying.
So you won't take down lies, or you will take down lies? I think it's just a pretty simple yes or no.
In a democracy,
Okay.
I believe that people should be able to see for themselves what politicians that they may or may not vote for
So
are
you
saying.
won't take them
Judge their
down.
character.
Facebook announcing just this week they took down several bogus accounts from Russia and Iran that were posing as political groups spreading misinformation. Zuckerberg telling Congress in extreme situations, politicians could be censored.
If anyone, including a politician, is saying things that that is calling for violence or could risk imminent physical harm or voter or census suppression, we will take that content down.
But when it comes to other potentially false or misleading ads run on Facebook, the CEO seemed to be at a loss for words.
Could I run ads targeting Republicans in primaries saying that they voted for the Green New Deal?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head. I think.
So you don't know if I'll be able to do that?
Tough crowd. As for the cryptocurrency, Zuckerberg was there to talk about Libra. He said Facebook would not move forward unless they were approved by U.S. regulators. And guys, to give you one more example of how tough it was for Zuckerberg, one representative said, "You're the right person at the right time to take this beating." So, yeah, it's rough there.
Okay, Tom, thanks very much. Today on Capitol Hill, Congressman Elijah Cummings will lie in state. The sharecropper's son, who became a civil rights champion before heading to Congress, played a leading role in the investigations of President Trump. Both Barack Obama and Bill Clinton will speak at his funeral in Baltimore on Friday, along with Hillary Clinton and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. He will be missed.
He certainly will.